A hailstorm disaster in Nebraska, USA, reacted immediately and turned a multi-million-dollar investment, a solar park, into a pile of toxic debris. Within minutes, hail destroyed 14,000 solar panels with a total capacity of 5.2 megawatts. The complex was planned by the investors to produce green energy for 25 years, but in reality, it only made it to 4 years. A hailstorm disaster in Nebraska.
What's up, guys? Welcome back to Michigan Muckraker. My name is Michelle. Today is November 22nd of 2023, and what you just saw there was probably the future of the Amazon solar farm that is set to be built in Lawrence Township. And the report is that there's no local oversight for that farm, that solar farm. So that's something that we need to look into and keep our eye out on. Thank you very much for joining me. I hope that you guys are doing well today, and happy Thanksgiving tomorrow. I hope that you spend time with your family and be thankful for what you have while you have it. And that's all we can do, right? Either gratitude or resentment. It's a choice we have to make every day. So let's choose to be grateful for what we have, right? Thank you, Zoltan the man. Got the live notification today. Good morning. Good morning to you. And the Quilted Gardener couldn't stay, but jumped in before the stream started and said, once again, I'll have to watch this one later. I am anxious to hear what you have for us today. Please have a wonderful Thanksgiving. So thank you. And again, happy Thanksgiving to you guys. So I have a lot to share. I'm not going to dilly-dally here. This is Amazon's first Michigan solar farm. It may be built without local oversight, worrying officials. Came out the 17th of November. By the way, at the end of this huge news dump, Michigan news dump that I have for you, at the end, I'm going to talk about the Capitol. There is a exercise going on right now, and I think it's important to be looking at that. I think it started on the 18th, so I have details, but that's at the end of this. Today I have obviously just a little bit on the solar farms, and I'm going to talk about Marshall, what's going on with the Ford battery plant. I have information on DTE and the Michigan Public Service Commission being corrupt, of course. And I'm going to talk about the gun grab that Whitmer and her administration has accomplished. Well, at least set into motion, right? So we are going to show this really quick. The hail report in Lawrence, Michigan. Last year and the year before, there were 3 hailstorms. So I don't think it's a very intelligent plan to build a huge solar farm in Lawrence Township, especially since we could use that for farming now, but once we contaminate it with solar panel technology and the destruction of such, you're not going to be able to farm on that land for quite some time. So the first one I want to jump into is DTE. Consumers enjoy close relationship with state panel that regulates them. I found something really interesting that connects Texas to our own Michigan panel or commission. So jumping in, this is by Paul Egan, Detroit Free Press, and I tried to share articles that are behind a paywall so that way, you can benefit. When an association of energy suppliers sued the Michigan Public Service Commission over its implementation of state electricity law, it hired a former chair of the commission to take the case to court. In defending the suit, the 3 members of the commission teamed up with one of the biggest companies they regulate, Consumers Energy. They filed a joint trial brief and even shared lawyers. Michigan residents endure some of the nation's least reliable electricity service, along with some of the highest residential rates. A Free Press investigation found the state commission charged with preventing that from happening lacks transparency in its decision-making and gets 80% of its funding from the DTE, Energy, and Consumers. The 2 companies with a near monopoly on providing electricity to Michigan residents. Consumers regularly attended attend conferences at swanky resorts that are wholly or partially funded by utility trade groups, and frequently use the knowledge and contacts they glean as commissioners to solicit clients as utility and energy consultants once they leave. That's where the real money is, consulting. Outrageous, says McKinney, who the Free Press interviewed after she attended a community meeting in Detroit to vent about high electric bills and frequent outages. This is what happens when you have public-private partnerships. When the government has way too many regulations, they create monopolies, and then who benefits? DTE, consumers, and the state, of course. We can see how we got here, McKinney said after reviewing some of the newspaper findings. Michigan families deserve better. So I'm not going to get into all of it, but I highlighted some important things. So the commission solicits utility-funded organizations such as the Edison Electric Institute, an association of investor-owned utilities, for thousands of dollars in individual sponsorships to underwrite annual meetings of the Mid-America Regulatory Conference, MARC, a regional association of utility regulators. This is all how they centralize this power. Profits from the annual meetings are used to cover travel, meal, and accommodation costs for commissioner-only meetings, held each winter in southern locales, where commissioners can stay an extra free night at the hotel after the meeting ends, records show. The MPSC conducts nearly all of its deliberations in secret, despite the fact that an exemption from the Open Meetings Act that commissioners fought for and won in 1988 was sold to lawmakers and the public as a limited exemption to expedite rate cases. Of course, once you give power, you never give it back. You're going to have to fight for it to get it back. That's why you never give it up in the first place. Amid that lack of transparency, none of the 4,520 orders the MPSC has voted on since at least 2010 have been voted down, a Free Press analysis showed. The last no vote cast by a commissioner was in 2015. The year that United Nations solidified their implementation here in America with Obama. Despite the fact no more than 2 commissioners can come from the same political party. The revolving door for utility commissioners applies to not just where they go when they leave the commission, but where they came from. For example, former Republican Governor Rick Snyder appointed a former Consumers Energy executive, Norm Sarari, to the state panel. So, right, they all hang out with each other, which they get to right here. Current and former commissioners reject the idea the commission, which has about 200 employees, is too cozy with the big utilities. They say utility regulation in Michigan is a national model and point to factors such as an abundance of trees, changing weather, too little spent on infrastructure during Michigan's deep recession in the 2000s, the Mitten State's geography as 2 peninsulas, and bills passed by the legislature when asked why Michigan has high rates and low reliability. Yeah, it's easy. Regulation, too much government. Government has no need to be efficient, and they're not. They point to the personal integrity of commissioners appointed by governors from both parties and the absence of corruption scandals like the bribery scheme that rocked the Ohio Public Utilities Commission in 2020, which I have no idea about that. Have you heard about that huge scheme? But all this tells me is that, well, let me finish this paragraph. But economists say the independence of commissioners from the entities they regulate can be undermined in sometimes subtle ways, in a phenomenon known as regulatory capture without anything illegal happening. This is the power. This is the magic of UN Agenda 21 and all of the regulatory capture in general is the subtlety. It's like if you look directly at it, you don't see it kind of thing. It's so creepy, right? It hides in the shadows. That's what it does. It hides in the shadows. When regulatory capture exists, it doesn't mean the commission gives the dominant utilities everything they request. But it can mean over time that the commission grants higher rate increases than it otherwise would and falls short in holding utilities accountable for various failures, with customers suffering as a result. Right. They get more lenient, of course. There's always, if there's bribery happening, there's I scratch your back, you scratch mine. And even if it's not said out loud, you, as a human being, it's natural to feel that way. Like, oh, they really helped me out, I'm going to help them out. It's just not a good thing, right? Shouldn't be mixing that kind of stuff. In Michigan, oops. There we go. In Michigan, for at least the past decade until very recently, the MPSC granted DTE and consumers rate increases higher than the national average for investor-owned utilities that get their rates approved by regulators. Even though the company's performance on reliability and affordability has long been subpar, according to data analyzed by the Citizens Utility Board of Michigan. And although the commission opened investigations into inadequate storm responses by DTE and consumers in 2014, 2017, 2018, and 2021, it was not until 2022, after another storm response failure, that the MPSC ordered a $1.7 million outside audit of their systems, which is still pending. Right. They've been awful and corrupt for years, as monopolies will do, because they don't have any competition. So why not? This is why, nationalizing everything is awful as well. It's the same concept. It's a small group of people that have all of the power, and it never turns out well. In June of this year, following another series of outages, about 50 Detroit residents gathered at Farwell Recreation Center on the east side to vent their state representatives about frequent power outages, high electricity bills, and the $25 to $35 discounts DTE offered for extended blackouts. Right. That destroy refrigerators and freezers full of food and can sometimes force hotel stays. Right. So what the hell is $25 to $35 going to do? Nothing. Just fix your system. Don't be corrupt. If you're, going to offer a product or service, have pride in that and offer the best product or service that you can. They question why the company was not required to use a greater share of its hefty profits, more than $1 billion in net income in 2022, and close to that in 2021, to improve the reliability of its grid. Right. And, instead of fixing these dams, they are going to try to sell them to the tribes who get taxpayer dollars and who are going to buy them with taxpayer dollars and then remove them. Side note, that consumers is trying, it's hot potato, right? They're trying to get rid of the dams knowing that they're being regulated out. Dams are gone, too much regulation. They're not profitable. They're not good with renewable energy or anything else. And so consumers doesn't want to pay for that either. That's my whole point. They don't want to pay for anything. Oh, man. You've got these folks that really come with connections and an agenda, McKinney said after the meeting. They're coming from these industries, and they have an orientation. Among these, seated at the front of the room to hear the complaints, was Dan Scripps, a former Democratic state representative from northern Michigan's Leelanau County, whom Whitmer named to the MPSC in 2019, who just begged for more power and got it. As chair since 2020, he's paid over $162,000 a year, is what I'm assuming. The other two commissioners appointed in 2021 was Paratic and Karian, who attended her first meeting in July. Each receive about $139,000 a year. Let's see. He goes on and tells the crowd there are inequities in Michigan's residential electricity rates and service levels, which some of the outages tracking with historic divestment and lower levels of service in areas with majority Black populations. Also, residents with smaller homes are in many cases subsidizing residents with larger ones, while those without central air conditioning subsidize those who have it, Scripps said. So that, to me, when they say that kind of stuff, again, it reminds me of like blaming your neighbor. Oh, your neighbor has a bigger house than you. Like, it's their fault. You got to subsidize. You're paying for their bigger house. Like, I don't like how he said that at all. Good morning, Dragonfly. Thank you for joining me. Us, rather. us. We have 3 people in here. Thank you guys for hanging out. Please don't forget to smash like if you derive any value, if you find any new information in here, because that's the whole goal, is just to introduce you to information that is very valuable. At least I think we need to know about this stuff. So coming down here, the makeup of the current commission is unusual in that, along with Scripps, an attorney, it has 2 engineers. Paratic, appointed as an independent member, is a mechanical engineer who has worked on energy storage and wind turbines, among other areas. The other one is a Democrat, the state's first Asian American commissioner, is a chemical engineer who has worked on electric vehicle and climate issues for RMI and Ford Motor Company. No conflict of interest there, right? All of it is, there's no alternate ideas. Everybody is in line with Agenda 2030 and the Green New Deal, which is now called the Infrastructure Law. Or no, the Inflation Reduction Act. At the time of this appointment, Scripps' wife, Jamie Witzel Scripps, was a partner in Five Lakes Energy, a Lansing-based firm that provides management, research, and public policy services related to clean energy. Jamie Scripps, an attorney and former state environmental official, had even testified in a DTE rate case that was pending before the commission. She sold her interest in Five Lakes Energy, and Scripps recused himself from the rate case. At the same time, Jamie Scripps in 2019 started her own energy consulting firm, Hunterston Consulting, LLC of Northport, which is in 2021 was awarded $96,000 contract with Eagle. That contract to support Whitmer's Council on Climate Solutions has since been extended and increased to $245,000, state records show. So you can see, this is where our money's going. It's flowing around into all of these commissions and these different groups that basically steal our money. That's what they do. The website, and implement things we don't want. The website doesn't list the firm's clients. Dan Scripps said he only knows the identities of a few of his wife's clients, but knows that her company, with the exemption of her contract with the state, does not do business in Michigan. I wonder where they do business at. This is talking about utility groups support Southern gateways. Those profits are used to support January commissioner-only meetings, typically held in Texas, the southernmost marked state, in San Antonio or Austin, and never in South Dakota, the coldest member of the state. And it shows, so this is talking about when they take this money and go have a good time and go play golf, of course. Let's see. Gets into a lot of detail. Current and former MPSC commissioners were unanimous in describing such meetings as invaluable ways to exchange information with their counterparts from around the country and keep abreast of the latest industry trends. Right. So they can all be on the same page, guys. So they're all marching in lockstep. But commissioners mix business and pleasure even at the MARC annual meetings. Minutes show Golf Sunday and fly fishing trip were part of the plans for the MARC annual meeting in Little Rock, Arkansas, 2013. Scripps said commissioners pay from their own pockets for golf or any other events away from their meetings. Right. I think taxpayers are still paying, though, his payroll, right? When commissioners bring family members, they pay themselves for family travels and meals. Those spouses may share rooms paid for with corporate or public funds, he said. Again, government steals money from us and pays this individual anyway, so all of it is taxpayer dollars. Dragonfly says, I just looked at our water department's flyer in our township, and he got a big award through Eagle. Makes me sick. Our water department director is useless. Yeah, I mean, it's really, I guess, difficult for people, even if they have the best intentions, to stay away from bribery, bullying, or blackmail. So I don't know if you can actually do well in the system. That's a question that I have. Ratepayers shut out. Ratepayers are shut out from the discussions that take place at out-of-state conferences. And Scripps acknowledged that even in Lansing, the MPSC conducts nearly all its deliberations behind closed doors, with only the formal votes and any statement commissioners want to make about those orders taking place in open meetings. No transparency whatsoever. This exemption to the Open Meetings Act has long been applied to all proceedings before the Commission and is not limited to just rate cases. I strongly believe that this process promotes the public interest in the form of more reasoned results. So without the public knowing, it's more reasoned? So are you saying the public is unreasonable? That's not how the debate over the MPSC's contentious Open Meetings Act was framed in 1988, of course. The State House initially voted down the measure amid opposition from consumer groups and newspaper editorials, but later reversed itself. I wonder why. The late state rep, did they want more power or more money, or both? The late state rep, Alma Stallworth, a Democrat from Detroit, a longtime chair of the House Public Utilities Committee, said it would speed up a lengthy and cumbersome rate-setting process in which the Commission has a quasi-judicial role, the Free Press reported at the time. A former MPSC chair, who was appointed by Governor John Engler, Republican governor, said she's impressed by the willingness of Scripps and the current commission to significantly reduce the utilities' requested rate increases, which makes me question why. Why are they willing to significantly reduce the utilities' requested rate? What are they trying to do? Again, I did it. Are they trying to blame the people in the end on why we don't have electricity? I don't know. It always comes back to that. I have a story today that talks about the strike. So, and how it's our fault, or the strikers' fault. A lot of political pressure comes to bear on the chairman from the large regulated entities, said Chappelle, who was on the commission from 2001 to 2007 and chaired the body for more than 2 years. She wouldn't specify what forms of pressure that pressure takes beyond utility donations to campaign and nonprofit funds controlled by elected officials, which are substantial. No comment, Chappelle said when pressured on that question. So, we don't know the extent of the pressure, but it's being admitted right there that controlled by elected officials, the nonprofit funds. So there's one pressure. Scripps said he hasn't felt the kind of pressure from big utilities that Chappelle referenced. Yeah, because he's bought and paid for. You don't feel pressure if you're one of them. One of them. He said he takes phone calls from the president of DTE and consumers, but only to discuss operational issues, not rate cases. Yeah, I believe you. DTE and consumers don't embrace the idea that the MPSC is captured by them and favors their interests over ratepayers. Oh, of course they don't believe that. It's in their best interest to say, at least, that they don't. Trevor Lohr, vice chairman of DTE, said Michigan's residential rates are high because they have the cost of state-mandated efficiency and conservation programs baked into them, resulting in lower bills for homeowners and no windfall for the company. Can someone explain this to me? Because I have it highlighted because it's confusing. Michigan's residential rates are high because they have the cost of state-mandated efficiency and conservation programs baked into them. Regulations, of course, would make residential rates high. But and then it says resulting in lower bills for homeowners and no windfall for the company. What does it, if you have residential rates that are high, how do you have lower bills for homeowners? Please explain. I was confused on that. Katie Carey, a spokeswoman for consumers, said the MPSC regulates utilities according to well-established laws and procedures. The company's relationship with the commission, excuse me, and interested stakeholders has and will continue to be professional, and laws and rules ensure a fair, transparent, impartial process. Without elaborating, Scripps said he partly credits former MPSC Commissioner Sally Tallberg, who immediately preceded him as chair, for making sure the commission was insulated from external pressures. This tells me she's the one that sold out. So I looked into her really quick on a side note, and I can't read it because Detroit News I don't pay for, and it does this pop-up stuff. But it says the Michigan regulator Tallberg resigns Texas board after power outages. I'm like, wait a minute. So this woman was in charge, right here, 5 board members of the Electric Reliability Council of Texas. She was in that. The entity that manages and operates the electricity grid that covers much of Texas will resign on Wednesday, according to a notice to the Public Utility Commission. A 6th has withdrawn his application to the board. All 6 live outside of Texas. Sally Tallberg, board chair. She was the chair when Texas went through their energy crisis. And now she is the chair for this company, NYISO, the New York Independent System Operator, not-for-profit corporation responsible for operating the state's bulk electricity grid, administering New York's competitive wholesale electricity markets. So this individual sold out, made it nice and cushy, and then went into Texas, destroyed their system in 2021, left, and now is working for New York. So New York, you better watch out. You know, obviously for several reasons, New York is a big target, but not only do they have a congestion zone that's being implemented, and you'll have to pay $9 to $26 a day to drive near Madison Square Garden. Doesn't it sound like a low emission zone? I think so. You're going to be fined for your cars in New York very soon. It's happening so fast. But anyway, thought that it was interesting. Sally Tallberg, look out for her, look out for New York, and see what happens with her energy. Tallberg was appointed by Snyder in 2013 as an independent commissioner and became chair in 2016. Before that, she was a senior consultant focusing on energy issues at Public Sector Consultants of Lansing, which counts DTE and consumers among its clients. She returned to PCS to a similar role in 2021 after forming her own consulting firm, Tallberg Solutions, that January. Tallberg confirmed that before joining the commission, she performed work at PSC that was funded by both DTE and consumers, but didn't feel she had any conflicts that would require recusals. Getting to the end here. So the MPSC and consumers team up to fight the suit. Let's see. Dragonfly said, I called their water department, ask the safety and water guy if they test for graphene oxide. They said they never heard of it and only test what states require, and blew me off. Yeah, I mean, they're definitely not going to admit that yet. It's a completely unregulated market, that graphene oxide, and it is, I think, technology, nanotechnology, which is unregulated. But I do need to look more into that. So don't quote me on any of that. It's just something that I remember listening. I watch a lot of YouTubers and Rumble, you know, all that. But it's something to consider. Absolutely. There are so many things happening and so many different levels. It's hard to have your eye on all of it. But that is why we're stronger together, right? Strength in numbers. Although I think both of those have been captured by, anyway. Let's see. The Chappelle, an attorney, believes the energy laws the legislator passes are much more influential than the makeup and actions of the commission. State laws passed since 2008, the first earthquake, for the Great Reset, which have essentially snuffed the competitive electric market created by legislation passed in 2000. Okay, so state laws passed since 2008, which have essentially snuffed the competitive electric market created by legislation passed in 2000, are placating utilities at the cost of customers, she said. The commission can only do so much, right? They're just implementing the law, and their hands are tied. That suit, in which the MPSC and Consumers Energy teamed up to file a joint trial brief, alleges that the MPSC's interpretation under Tallberg of a 2016 state law, not the law itself, is unconstitutional by essentially forcing each alternative supplier to purchase power from DTE and consumers when they could make cheaper purchases outside the state. The commission said the Buy Michigan rule is needed to ensure reliability of supply. I didn't know that we had that since 2016. We can only get Michigan energy, and that is concerning. I hear that the United Nations and the tribes are all trying to shut down Line 5, and so if we have to rely on solar and wind, we are going to be in deep, deep trouble. Way worse than I thought. I did not know until I read this article that we have a Buy Michigan rule, thanks to this Talberg woman. So, something to consider. This is out of Capcom, and it's connected to the article that we just read. In Michigan, central planning is not the path to freedom. So this is still talking about the solar and wind. If you disagree with elected officials, there is a process for that, not so much for bureaucrats. Come down here, the sitting of large-scale solar and wind projects in Michigan is less about what decision is made than who makes it and why. A bad decision by local officials is better than a good decision by Lansing bureaucrats. Worst case scenario is when Washington gets involved. It's easier taking on a railroad. Supporters of the sitting bill admit that Michigan can't meet Governor Gretchen Whitmer's clean energy goals without removing local say in those projects. With hysterics about end-of-the-world scenarios and a governor in the second of 2 terms, there was a pressure to act fast. There was no time left to wrangle with local communities whose land was needed. Better to go over their heads. It's exactly what happened. Dan Scripps, chair of the Michigan Public Service Commission and a Whitmer appointee, handled the blocking and tackling. Absent reform that empowered Scripps and his fellow appointees, he warned, the Whitmer climate agenda would fall short. Right, so Scripps is like, I need more power. Give me more power. And they did. This is very much a property rights issue, Scripps testified to the Senate Energy Commission. Oh, man. I can't believe the people that are implementing UN Agenda 21, who don't want private property rights, are talking about it and using it against us. This is what they're saying. So if I own a farm and I want to put solar panels on my farm, should be none of your business. This is very much a property rights issue, Scripps testified to the Senate Energy Committee. If a farm owner or landowner willingly wants to lease his or her land for solar wind, this process affords them a way to be able to do that. Far too often, a local authority denies permits because someone on the township board doesn't like the way that these look. And for that reason alone, a farm owner has to turn away opportunity to make hundreds of thousands of dollars and sell their farms to the government. I know they're just leasing, but when you have to look at the fine print of any contract, and it's not good. I'm going to do a deep dive on that. I got to find the information that I know is out there, but it's hard to find on exactly what's going to happen, what these contracts actually say, and how the land will be lost if you make a deal with the government. That's what you're doing, because the government regulates and owns the solar and farm industry. Anyway, when the people of Green Charter Township disagreed with their board's support for the Gotion project, they launched a recall effort. 5 officials were recalled and 2 others resigned instead of being recalled. The people sought redress of their grievances, shifted the Overton window in their favor, and won. I love how I'm seeing it in several different articles, and even somebody, individual I watch on YouTube for years, he actually made a video. I didn't know about this new channel he has because he's been canceled and deleted many times over. But he made a video about it, about Green Charter Township recalling the entire board. It is such a big deal. It proves that there is still power in the township, but not for very much longer. If we don't do something now to stop this power grab. I mean, already they lost power this year here in Michigan. But anyway, the only hope for reversing a bureaucrat's decision is to replace the person who appointed the bureaucrat. That is the problem, which we do need to recall Whitmer. But anyway, in the case of the Public Service Commission, an incumbent governor hasn't lost in Michigan in 30 plus years, and no governor has ever been recalled. We should recall ours. What about the farmers' neighbors? How do they take up grievance against a bureaucrat they did not elect and cannot recall? Giving more power to bureaucrats is not the path to freedom in Michigan, nor for the farmer, not for anybody. Local elections operate on the principle of one person, one vote. This is good because elected leaders have the consent of the governed. When they lose that consent, they can be replaced, as we have seen. That is why it's so powerful what happened in Green Charter Township. When they lose consent, they can be replaced. You don't see that very often. Bureaucrats operate on the principle one person, one vote, one time. You don't elect the bureaucrat, you elect the person who appoints the bureaucrat. That means the bureaucrat serves the politician, not the public. More power for bureaucrats is not the path to freedom in Michigan, not for the farmer, not for anybody. Thank you, James David Dixon, CapCon. Very good article. Now we're going to jump in to voter fraud. This is a very quick summary. Massive 2020 voter fraud uncovered in Michigan. You will not believe this. November 18th, 2023. In the months leading up to 2020 general election, allegations of voter fraud began to surface in Michigan. I heard about it shortly after the vote took place, but of course, the information was stifled, called misinformation, and so on and so forth. A police report sheds light on a potentially massive voter fraud operation involving thousands of fraudulent voter registration in the state. This investigation, which was initially conducted by the Muskegon Police Department, reveals a complex web of suspicious activities, including fake registrations, prepaid gift cards, weapons, and more. Despite the alarming evidence, the investigation was seemingly buried, leaving many questions unanswered. The Muskegon Clerk's Office alerted on October 8th of 2020, Muskegon City Clerk Ann Meesh noticed a black female dropping off between 8,000 to 10,000 completed voter registration applications at the city clerk's office. Concerned about the irregularities in the applications, Meesh contacted the Muskegon Police Department to launch an investigation. Red flags and suspicious findings. Upon further examination, Meesh and her team discovered several red flags indicating potential voter fraud. Many of the voter registration forms were filled out in the same handwriting, and addresses on multiple forms were either invalid or non-existent. Additionally, phone numbers and signatures on these forms did not match the records with the Department of Secretary of State. Good morning, Connie. And Connie says, good morning, Michelle, Zoltan, Dragonfly, and Quilted. Thank you for joining us. We are discussing the voter fraud that definitely took place, but why now are we allowed to see some evidence? It's still being suppressed, but not as much. It's definitely being talked about more. Of course, it's because next year, the 2024 elections, they want you to question them. They didn't want you to question, and now it's been 3 years. So Biden has gotten away with it. They have gotten away with it. And now we're coming up to the 2024 elections, and they want you to doubt everything. And that's why we get to see this information. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't see it and know about it. We should also just know why they are releasing it now. We must always ask, why are they telling me this now? Because there's always a reason they share the information at specific times in their narrative, in their play, to create a specific reaction that they're looking for. They suppress the reaction until they want it. It seems like it's too much power, that there's no way that they could do that. But they do. They figured out how to manipulate each system. And Connie says, and yet, many blame the voters of Michigan for those in political positions. I know. I really, every time I hear a lot of the people that I watch, Tim Cast, a bunch of them, Russell Brand, he doesn't do it so much, but I hear it all the time. Oh, you voted it in, you get what you deserve. It's like, I'm sorry, but you're still believing in the Matrix, buddy. Anyway, the involvement of GBI strategy. So the police report identifies GBI Strategies as the organization behind the alleged voter fraud scheme. GBI Strategies, a Tennessee-based group with connections to the Biden campaign and various Democratic campaign committees, has been operating since 2014. The report reveals that the organization received significant payments from political campaigns, including $1,571,386 from the Doug Jones for Senate campaign in 2018, and $188,000 from the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee in the same year. An operation involving temporary offices. So GBI Strategy set up temporary offices in several swing states, including Michigan, prior to the 2020 election. The investigation uncovered job openings in Flint, Michigan, as well as regional field manager positions in Washington, D.C. and Chicago. This widespread operation raises questions about the extent of the alleged voter fraud. I don't even know. I've done so much research, and can't even imagine the extent of fraud. Especially if if the voting machines are connected to the internet, it really is just a matter of going beep, boop, beep, and turning all the votes into whatever you want. You have the best hackers in the world, the government does. Then, you can do anything if it's connected to the internet, which they deny that they are, but I've seen that they are. How do you know? How can you prove it? How can you verify? Suspicious items and activities. During the investigation, law enforcement discovered a range of suspicious items and activities. Dozens of new phones and hundreds of prepaid payment cards were found, indicating potential fraudulent activities. Furthermore, the police report mentions the presence of semi-automatic rifles, suppressors, and customized pistols. While these weapons were deemed legal and lawful under inspection by the ATF, their connection to voter fraud operation remains unclear. Yes, I'm not really sure what weapons have to do with it. The involvement of Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel. Surprisingly, or not, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel, who is currently prosecuting 15 senior citizens and a former Michigan GOP co-chair for casting alternative electoral votes, asked the Michigan State Police to join the investigation into the alleged voter fraud. However, Nessel has consistently denied the existence of widespread voter fraud in Michigan, despite her involvement in the investigation. How about we just say she's corrupt and call a spade a spade? Lack of follow-up by the FBI. Oh, Connie says, not to mention switching from ballpoint pens to felt pens. I heard this was all over the state and not just in my precinct. I don't even know about that regulation. So if that is a red flag, if you switch from ballpoint pens to felt pens. And Queen's Gambit says, I call about my vote, and our clerk said, looking forward to hearing what she said, or he. So after the Muskegon Police Department conducted their initial investigation, the case was turned over to the FBI. However, there's no evidence to suggest that the FBI took any action regarding the alleged voter fraud. No, they probably helped conduct the mission. The mission being make it look, the mission being steal the election, make it look like it. I don't think that we actually vote for the president, but there is a narrative and a story that they want people to believe in. And so the FBI is absolutely involved with that story. However, there's no evidence to suggest that the FBI took any action. This lack of follow-up raises concerns about the thoroughness of the investigation. There's no investigation probably going on. It's just buried. Unanswered questions and controversies. The release of the police report has raised more questions than answers. It remains unclear why the investigation was seemingly buried. Really? And why key individuals and organizations involved in the alleged voter fraud operation have not faced legal consequences. Additionally, the report highlights the discrepancy between Michigan's 2016 and 2020 election results, with President Trump losing to Joe Biden by a significant margin despite winning the state in the previous election. Yes. You come over here, and it's same thing. It goes into many of the details I shared. But down here, it says, the media likes to ignore the fact that the bellwether counties overwhelmingly voted for Trump, yet Biden somehow pulled out the win. Something that has never happened in history, but probably just a coincidence, right? Just a coincidence. Let's see. Independence Township, thanks for calling a space to hear. It's nice to hear from you. I'll have to read that, but thank you. Let's see. She said there is no connection to your ballot. You're voting the stub with the number is detached before you put it in the tabulator or the scanner, so it would not be able to identify. So you're talking about Wi-Fi, whether they're connected or not. Yeah, it's some people say one thing, some people say another, so it is hard to know the truth, right? We live in the age of deception. The man says there's so many new people here. I love it. Yes, it's been a while since I've seen Queen's Gambit. But yeah, thank you guys for being here. So I'm going to talk about Ford really quick. Ford to drastically scale back jobs, investment plans for Marshall in EV battery plant. And hopefully I can get to the reason for this, which is automation and robotics. I have a whole section. If I don't get to it today, I will do a video on it, but hopefully we can do this. So Ford is reducing its commitment to a planned Marshall area electric vehicle battery facility by 800 jobs and more than $1 billion. It moves that will reduce the plant's production capacity by roughly 40%. So this is obviously bad news for those against the mega site, the people that do not want this plant here at all. It sucks that they're just downsizing. But we have to ask why. Why are they downsizing? Is it because of local pushback? Is it because the market isn't there? They say, I think right here, that it's because the market isn't as far along as they thought. So what? They thought we'd all be more compliant sheep? That we would just go gung-ho into it? I don't know. The Dearborn automaker is resuming work at the site after a 2-month pause and still intends to meet its goal to open the plant by 2026. The announcement represents a drastic shift from the promised 2,500 jobs and $3.5 billion investment revealed earlier this year by Ford and Governor Gretchen Whitmer. Ford spokesman Mark Truby acknowledged the company's cuts also almost certainly means the state will reduce the roughly $1.8 billion promised in taxpayer subsidies for the mega development. We've been studying this project for the past couple months. I think we're all aware EV adoption is growing, and we expect that to continue, actually. But it's not growing at the pace that I think ourselves and the industry had expected, Truby said. Again, it's because you guys thought we would just take the medicine or whatever and you call medicine that's actually poison. No, we're smarter than you think. We don't want your EV battery crap. Truby said Ford originally anticipated the facility would produce 35 gigawatt hours worth of batteries annually, enough to equip 400,000 vehicles. Now the company expects the plant to do 20 gigawatt hours, representing roughly 42% reduction in output, approximately enough batteries for 230,000 vehicles. Representatives for Whitmer and the MEDC, the state entity that oversees incentives for this deal and other mega sites, focused on the fact that Ford still plans to invest at the site and not on the cuts. Of course. Hey, just be happy they're still coming here, even though we bribed the hell out of them to do so. As Ford had to make some changes, we've had a very clear, open line of communication, and the state's role will change as well, right? When one aspect gets resized, so does the other. It won't get ahead of the MEDC. They're doing their work, but that wouldn't be a surprising outcome, Whitmer said when asked about the Ford incentives after an event in Livonia. At this point, McKinley anticipated Ford and the MEDC will come together to get a proposal on a reduced subsidy package that could be presented to the Michigan Strategic Fund Board, an entity that authorizes incentives. It's still unclear whether any changes will ultimately require legislative action. If the original proposal misrepresented Ford's plans, the hundreds of millions of dollars tied to job creation should be revoked under the contract. The governor must right-size state funding and ensure taxpayers aren't left on the hook for her failure, Hall said in a statement on Tuesday. That did not stop large contractor Walbridge from continuing site preparation. So even when they were paused, Walbridge kept going. It received a contract worth of $178 million to ensure the infrastructure is ready for Ford. We gave $170 million taxpayer dollars to this company, Walbridge. I wonder who that company is connected to. We are pleased to see Ford resume work to build the Blue Oval factory that will create 1,700 local jobs. No, sorry, that's a lie. Automation is already taking over factory jobs and so on. Hospital jobs. The project is a key piece in a larger policy championed by Whitmer and state economic development officials. They argue using hundreds of millions in public tax dollars to subsidize such mega deals will ultimately result in revitalizing communities and jumpstarting industries key to Michigan's future. No. What's going to happen is ghost towns. Nobody's going to want to live next to a huge abandoned poison center that was once an EV battery component plant or anything to do with EV batteries and all the chemicals that are involved. While some local residents champion the site, others are aggressively campaigning against it. Many local residents oppose what they consider a lack of transparency around the project, while others have concerns about possible environmental impacts. Some attack Ford's partnership with Cattle, a Chinese company and the world's largest battery manufacturer, at the site. They suggest without evidence that there is a nefarious connection between Cattle and the Chinese government. Truby confirmed Ford still intends to work with Cattle at the site, noting the 1,700 promised jobs will all be positions with Ford. So this was Detroit Free Press and Dave Bosher. Probably butchered it. Sorry. All right, so I'm going to get into some of the policies Michigan lawmakers could take up when they come back next year. This is from Lobo out of the Detroit Free Press. I got a lot going on from the Free Press right now. So just coming right down, prescription drug affordability. Before lawmakers returned from their summer break, Whitmer pointed to reducing the cost of prescription drugs as a policy priority. So basically, just like the Inflation Reduction Act actually causes more inflation, Prescription Drug Affordability Act is going to implement more regulations and therefore cause prescription drugs to be less affordable. Every single time. It's like clockwork. The government gets involved, say they're going to make it better, and they make it worse. Now, is this ignorance, or are they lying and saying that they want to make it better when really they want to make it worse? Why would they want to make it worse? To create hell on earth, so we beg for them to have more power and to take control and to just fix it. That's why. Order out of chaos. Tale as old as time. While the Senate passed legislation to create a prescription drug affordability board, oh, that's what we need, another board. The bills weren't taken up in the House before they adjourned. The Prescription Drug Affordability Board should be tasked with investigating prices and setting caps on certain medicine costs. Right. We are getting more like USSA every day. It's awful. Paid family and medical leave. Democrats in the state Senate and House have introduced identical bills to establish a 15-week paid family and medical leave law. If enacted, it would be one of the most generous paid leave policies in the U.S. The legislation proposes a formula for workers to receive partial pay during the period of leave, setting the maximum weekly benefit rate of 65% of the state's average weekly wage. You know what this will do? This will kill jobs. Who can afford this? Do you think, again, I always bring up Weeby's a Party Store because it's the most local business I could think of. You know, it's like, it's the quintessential small business. When I think of a small business and what these policies will do, I always think of a real small business that is run by the owner. Can't afford, or I don't know their finances, but I'm assuming that it's difficult to afford $15 an hour minimum wage employee when you don't make that much at a tiny business. So it's just, this kind of stuff just means small businesses are going to be destroyed and people's jobs and livelihoods. Walmart will do this, but guess what? They'll just put 10 more self-checkout stations in where you can work for Walmart and I can work for Walmart. Police accountability. In January, days after the killing of Nichols by police in Memphis, members of the Michigan Legislative Black Caucus held a press conference outlining their goal to pass legislation to reduce instances of police brutality. Again, how is more government oversight and micromanaging going to help this situation, especially after the same people wanted to defund the police? Bills to enact policing policy changes have been introduced in previous legislative sessions but have never passed, so something to look out for. Rights for victims of sexual abuse, removing the statute of limitations for civil action for sexual abuse in certain situations. I'd have to look at the details. I don't know what that's about. But any changes are something to be scrutinized because our government is corrupt. So got to be careful when we have new stuff going on. So economic development overhaul. This, I think, is actually connected to the Biden rural playbook, which I'm going to be doing a deep dive next week on that one. It says, under the proposed bill, the Make It in Michigan Fund would also include a new pool of money, the Michigan 360 Fund, which would require at least 20% of state funding used to support a project to go directly to local community investments. So local community investments, this is a way to get out to the country and maybe bribe the local community board or something. Like this worries me. You got to be careful with the government looking at rural areas, and it worries me with the Biden Act. It, of course, has to do with the Wildlands Project. Freedom of Information Act. Of course, we should not have to beg for information. FOIAs and stuff, this is ridiculous, and most of it's redacted. It's crazy. Before lawmakers adjourned for the year, a bipartisan plan was introduced to subject both the governor and lawmakers to Michigan's Freedom of Information Act, or FOIA, the law that allows individuals to request and inspect records of public bodies, beg, and pay huge amounts of money to get information when they should just put it online. There's no reason why we shouldn't know everything that they're doing with the internet. Bills to enable an overhaul of Detroit's property tax system stalled in the House in October. This is land value tax enactment. Detroit Mayor Mike Dugan has championed a land value tax system that would raise property taxes on vacant land. Land grab? That's probably the end result of this new policy. But to enact the system, Michigan lawmakers need to pass legislation allowing Detroit to hold a citywide referendum on the switch. So yeah, if I have vacant land and right now I pay $100 a year in taxes, you want to come and make me pay $1,000 a year? Why are you going to charge me more? Fine me. I'm just assuming. But raising property taxes on vacant land, I mean, I'm taking it literally right there. And then lastly, no-fault auto insurance. The Senate passed legislation to increase reimbursement rates for medical providers treating car crash victims, but the bills are still up for consideration in the House. So just to give you an update, when they do come back someday, that's what they're going to be looking into. Next, UAW strike plays a part in upward bump in Michigan jobless rate. This is from Michigan Radio, came out the 16th. I'm not going to get into the entire thing, but the auto worker strike played a part in Michigan's jobless rate, edging up to 4.1% in October. Told you they'd blame the strikers, even though this was going to happen anyway because of automation. And because the market is contracting. We're going into a Great Depression. So with that in mind, they want to blame it on, the strikers, but really it's them. According to the monthly jobs report from the Michigan Department of Technology Management and Budget. So just wanted to share that. Michigan takes a step to punish salon owner who said she'll only serve men and women. So here is an attack on small businesses once again. Michigan officials have charged a salon owner with discrimination after she said she would not serve people who identify as anything other than a man or a woman. Now, I think if I open a business, I should be able to do what I want with my business. If I want to exclude anybody, I should be able to. It's my business, and I will lose business if it's a bad, if it's a bad deal, if it's a bad exclusion. You shouldn't do it. The market should decide. That's what a free market does. If we had a free market, obviously we have a highly manipulated market, but it's okay for somebody to have a specific flag up, but it's not okay for this person to deny pronouns. The Michigan Department of Civil Rights on November 15th charged Christine Geiger and her salon Studio 8 Hair Lab with discrimination after investigating complaints that were filed over the owner's comments. The truth is, based on a thorough investigation, the Studio 8 and its owner, Christine Geiger, openly and repeatedly violated the Elliott Larson Civil Rights Act. John Johnson Jr., the department's executive director, told the reporters in a briefing. The Civil Rights Act prohibits discrimination on the basis of certain characteristics, including religion, implemented in 1977. It was expanded this year by the state legislator and Democrat Governor Gretchen Whitmer to cover gender identity, enshrining a 2022 Michigan Supreme Court interpretation. This is so incredibly dangerous. This is the very first symptom of the disease that we now have in our law, okay? I'm going to continue. If a human identifies as anything other than a man or woman, please seek services at a local pet groomer. You are not welcome at this salon, period. This is what Miss Geiger posted in July on Facebook. Absolutely her right to free speech. She is allowed to think how she wants to think. You are allowed to think how you want to think. If you want to cut people's hair that want to identify a certain way and you want to accept all that, then, open up a hair salon and do that. The stance was taken to ensure that clients have the best experience, and I am admitting that since I am not willing to play the pronoun game or cater to requests outside of what I perceive as normal, this probably isn't the best option for that type of client, she said. In another post, Ms. Geiger said that LGB are more than welcome, but transgender people were not. In a third post, Ms. Geiger said there were only 2 genders and said anything else is a mental health issue. Belief that one is another gender used to be designated a mental health illness by the American Psychiatric Association, but that was changed in 2012. 2012, that was Obama, right? Hey, what's up, Jessica? Thank you for your updates, keeping Michigan on top of all the information. Thank you for hanging out. I hope you're doing well, and I hope everybody that just arrived, happy Thanksgiving, in case I don't remember to say it at the end of the video as well. A woman and 2 people who say they are non-binary filed complaints over Ms. Geiger's statement, alleging they suffered from emotional distress and mental anguish. This drives me nuts. It's like you have to put your ideas onto other people. You have to force them to do something they don't want to do. Just go somewhere else and get your hair cut. Pretty simple. Go somewhere else. The investigation substantiated the alleged violations of the law, Mr. Johnson said. Lawyers. Studio 8 violated the law by denying their services to specific individuals based on sex, he told reporters. Even if no people were turned away after going to the salon, she violated the law by advertising that some people would be, he added. Again, if it's my business, it should be my business. Why is the government so involved? It's fascism, it's corporatism, close to communism, but worse in some ways. The respondent made sure the people in her community and beyond knew her position, he said. The next step following the charge is for administrative law judge to hear a case and issue a recommendation for the Michigan Civil Rights Commission, which will issue an order. Possible repercussions include fines, of course. You're not doing what we say or what we like, and you're not saying what we say and what we like, so we're going to fine you. And if you don't pay your fines, then what? You go to debtor's prison, which we weren't supposed to have here in America, but we do. Ms. Geiger did not respond to requests for comment. Her salon is located in Traverse City, which is next to the Grand Traverse Bay. Ms. Geiger previously told the Associated Press she stood by her posts. Good for you. I just don't want the woke dollar, she said, adding later, I'd rather not be as busy than to have to do services that I don't agree with. Lawsuit. Ms. Geiger said in a recent lawsuit that the 3 people who complained about her posts violated her rights to free speech and free exercise of religion, the Traverse City Record Eagle reported. Studio 8 supports the rights of expressive businesses and their owners to express their beliefs and conduct their business in a way that promotes those beliefs and does not promote contrary beliefs, lawsuit stated. Studio 8 simply wishes to enjoy those same freedoms. Yet, the CRA, Civil Rights Act, and ND, Non-Discrimination Ordinance, strips Studio 8 of these freedoms. That is the foundational reason for this lawsuit, to restore Studio 8 to an equal footing with other expressive business owners in regard to their right to express messages that are consistent with their beliefs and to avoid expressing those messages that are not, it also said. Traverse City was also named in the complaint. Traverse City Mayor Richard Lewis has said Ms. Geiger's behavior was discriminatory. This always reminds me of this book right here. I think it's this one. It's Live Not by Lies. I'll show it to you real quick. So, Live Not by Lies, and it does say a manual for Christian dissidents by Rod Dreyer, but in it, he talks about people who do not want to put the sign in their window in their business, but they're afraid not to, right? Otherwise, the Russian, well, yeah, they'll come for you. I can't even think of the word right now, but the Russian government would, come at you if you didn't have the sign. So it's easier just to lie and put the sign up. Don't do what's easy. Don't lie. Do exactly what she did. She is being honest. She is telling the truth. And she's taking the repercussions, but the alternative is far worse, okay? Lying and just going along, that is how Russia had millions of people, tens of millions of people starve to death, be enslaved in the gulags by their government. It's because they went along with lies. So live not by lies. Stand up for what you believe in, even if people don't agree with you and you're ostracized and everything else, because that is the only way that we can live in actually a true free society, is if we stand by the truth. So the truth is, we the people made the recalls, not the GOP. So this is about Gotion. I know I'm kind of jumping a little bit, but this is about the recalls that happened. This is written by Brandy, who lives in Green Charter Township and is one of the individuals that helped get the recalls started. She's done so much research into Gotion and the chemicals and everything else. She's talked on stages at rallies. She did a lot, and as did Marjorie Steele and a lot of individuals in Green Charter Township. They stepped up. They did what they had to do. So thank you for, doing what's right. So I'm going to share Brandy's view of what happened, because we want to make sure, the grassroots movement wants to make sure that it was the people that started it. It's a legit grassroots movement, and that is what she wants to talk about. Jessica, go Brandy. Yeah. All right, so Governor Whitmer's comments in Detroit Free Press recent article by Dave Bosher spell out loud and clear that Governor Whitmer does not care and is not listening to the residents of Michigan. No, she didn't go to any of the protests. She didn't go to any meetings. Her lawyers are involved with the old township board supervisor, but that's as close as Whitmer has gotten to the board, from what I know of. In response to news that recall elections in Big Rapids, Green Charter, and Eagle Townships had won across the state, Bosher writes, Whitmer spokeswoman Stacy LaRoche suggested the Gotion project already received the local support needed to lock in the development. LaRoche goes on to say, Gotion has received support from locals and has received all the necessary votes from local leadership to lock in this transformational investment. Meanwhile, Republicans have pushed a campaign for months to kill 2,300 jobs in Mecosta County, one of the most economically challenged regions in the state. We are not going to get distracted by politics and will continue to work with anyone to bring good-paying jobs to every corner of Michigan. This response is a complete slap in the face to community members who organized, petitioned, and got out and voted to make this change. Amen. Quite frankly, it's a slap in the face of all Michigan voters. A statement like this tells us Governor Whitmer's view of her constituents. Your opinions and your votes don't matter. No, worse. She doesn't think that you have any opinions and that your vote is bought and paid for by Republicans. If they are attributing this success to the GOP, it's that the only power is in politics. It must have been the Republicans that did this, because there's no way that the people could think for themselves and rise up. But you know what? Let her underestimate us. It's much better if your enemy underestimates you. And she's only an enemy as long as she refuses to be a sinner that will not stop sinning, right? If you will distance yourself, if you will, I guess the word is repent, then it's something different. But obviously, she's not going to do that anytime soon. Power, money, we know the deal. The question now is separating the sin from the sinner. That's what I was trying to get out. If we can separate the sin from the sinner, then we're all good. She's a human being. But as long as she continues to sin, people need to have consequences for their actions when that sinning harms everybody around them. Okay, I'm done with the preaching. I apologize. So Right here. The question now is this: where, during the process of inking the Gotion development project, was any consideration taken for local community support for Green Charter Township residents? Some actual documentation would be nice, considering that Green Township residents now have clear proof that there is no local support behind Gotion. I have a response to Governor Whitmer and her minion, Stacey LaRoche. The Republicans in office you keep blaming this on are not the ones who voted and made this change. It was we, the people, the actual residents who will suffer the negative consequences of Gotion and who have been mistreated and lied to by both Republicans and Democrats. Both parties seem to love playing the blame game and spinning the wheel to deflect the truth in action, but sorry, we're done with it. The actual people showed proof that our state government is not doing its job, and most definitely not following the law laid out for developments like this. Lansing and the Michigan Economic Development Corporation took taxpayer money and forced a hazardous EV battery factory on an unwilling community based upon the false testimony from the now recalled supervisor of Green Charter Township, James Chapman. Chapman lied to the Senate Appropriations Committee back in April when he stated the project had 90% community support with no polling. He didn't take a survey at all. He just lied. Just said whatever sounded good. 90% sounds good. They never thought that we would speak up. And I'm not a part of the Green Charter Township, but again, I live on the Muskegon River, and this will affect everybody on the Muskegon River, this stupid EV battery plant, component plant. State senators and the MEDC were contacted by countless residents and were well aware there was no local community support behind Gotion, but rather a mountain of opposition and concern. The community was never included or heard. Nor does the support of local universities such as Fair State or Michigan State University, in the case of Eagle Township and its semiconductor Michigan Manufacturing and Innovation Campus, prove community support. It only demonstrates that these universities hope to gain. What these universities hope to gain. FSU's support of Gotion should be scrutinized based on the fact that they're now President Bill Pink is well attached to Whitmer and other organizations trying to ram Gotion through. That kind of biased support should be secondary to the actual polling of residents who have and will continue to live in the area, which never happened. Well, yes. Gotion received $125 million in a CIP, Critical Industry Program, grant, and another $50 million through the Strategic Outreach and Attraction Reserves Fund. In order to receive a CIP grant, the law states that certain criteria must be considered and documented. One of those criteria is local community support. As Whitmer spokesperson stated, Gotion supposedly already received all necessary votes from local leadership. Yet how can that be when there has been no consideration or documentation of local community support in Green Township? Again, Green Township has the proof that there isn't and never was local community support now with the results from this election. We, the residents, had to prove this ourselves through an entire recall and through months of fighting to be heard and get answers. We're still waiting for answers to most of those questions. Yeah, and it really was a powerful message and a message of hope, and I hope that people hear it and that they will move themselves. Everybody, every township, you need to wake up. You need to go to your township board meeting, even if nothing's happening, like mine, because the battle will be there. The battle is coming right to your township. It's beyond sad and concerning that our governor wants to blame organizing and voting on a political party instead of hearing it as a message from we the people. This movement is about the will of the people. This is not about political party affiliation. Our legislators should be listening, not diminishing the will of the people. The state wouldn't need to try to take away local township zoning rights for these projects like these if they just stuck to following the law to begin with. Michiganders need to get involved because these projects aren't about benefiting the community or environment. They're about personal gain. Yeah, excellent article. Great job, Brandy. Definitely more, and from where I sit, it's more than just personal gain, of course. This is about corralling us into the 15-minute cities. It's taking the land. But United Nations Agenda 2030 is everywhere. The next thing I just found out about, the Plymouth Township residents fight subsidized gambling racetrack. Now, real quick, the first thing I think of when I think of racetracks and gambling is Seabiscuit. I've been watching that recently, and that was about the Great Depression and a horse in that time that won a lot of races. But the whole point being, when the Great Depression happened, horse racing was a huge deal. It was one of the forms of entertainment for the very, very, very poor masses. And so thinking about a gambling racetrack being built right now, unfortunately, makes me think of entertainment in the Great Depression. But anyway, thanks to local officials, Plymouth Township, a small suburb of Metro Detroit with roughly 27,000 residents, is slated to be the new home for Northville Downs, a year-round gaming facility that holds a few live horse races throughout the year. This deal, believed to be long in the works between Northville Downs owners and Plymouth Township officials, only became known to residents when it hit the media in January. Since that time, surprised and outraged residents have organized and been very vocal in their opposition to this gaming facility, repeatedly letting their township board of trustees, led by Kurt Heiss, as well as their planning commission, know just how they feel. 1996 Act should be updated to protect the community and give them the choice by vote regarding any type of gaming facilities located in their community. So, very short, very sweet, something to consider. Obviously, if they don't want it in their township, then they should get a vote. And that's what I've been advocating for since the beginning of finding out Gotion. Why didn't we get a say? Why didn't we get a vote? And same thing with this. They don't want the racetrack. They should be able to get a say and have it moved somewhere that does. I'm sure there are places that want a racetrack. But top down, you don't get a say. So the next thing we're going to be discussing is the Muskegon County Township that declared a Second Amendment sanctuary and formed a militia. This is something every township needs to consider, especially with the new law bills that just passed, trying to take guns away through a new means. On Tuesday evening, the Holton Township Board of Trustees adopted a resolution declaring the township a Second Amendment sanctuary, as well as adopting an amended addendum establishing a township militia. Holton Township is located in Muskegon County. Similar to Livingston County, which last April passed a resolution naming it what's been dubbed a Second Amendment sanctuary, Holton's resolution declares the township will not enforce red flag laws restricting gun and ammunition possession. Whereas the Holton Township Board declares and confirms to express its intent to stand as a sanctuary township for Second Amendment rights and to oppose, within the limits of the Constitution of the United States and the Commonwealth of Michigan, any efforts to unconstitutionally restrict such rights. The resolution reads, excellent. I will try to present this to my board as well, even though I don't really know how these resolutions work. Since a new law passed, this resolution says any law that was created before 2021. So I don't know. Would this resolution protect the township from the new gun laws that just passed this week? That's my question. Let me know if you have an answer. Otherwise, I'll be looking for it this weekend. The board's resolution also included an addendum to form a militia. The Militia Public Security Act states the township is adopting policies necessary for the security and rights of Holton Township residents. See, this township is ready for a war. This township is understanding of what's going on. Everybody needs to be like this township. If you want to have a free society and you love the Constitution and understand its value and want to implement the Constitution, then this is a township to look at and to maybe emulate, or at least consider it. Legal residents of Holton Township with primary residency in the township are eligible to join the militia and may make their intentions known by acknowledging their intent on social media, explicitly telling friends or family members they wish to join, or stating their intent by letter to the township militia. Several restrictions are explicitly stated in the addendum, including candidates, of course, must be 18. They must pass a federal firearms background check, and residents not desiring to be in the militia are, of course, not required to join. So we have another one out of Bridge, Michigan. West Michigan towns form militia to protest red flag gun laws, which, of course, violates the Second Amendment. There should be no laws that limit. I'm talking, we should even be able to have machine guns. I know, it sounds crazy. But freedom is a scary thing. It's a dangerous thing. And I don't think that it's right that if I had $30,000 that I could have a machine gun. So you have to be rich. You could still have one, it's just barriers to entry. Anyway. Oh, and people that really want to get a machine gun on the streets can get one through the black market. Holton Township in Muskegon County last week voted to declare itself a Second Amendment sanctuary city and went one step further than the 50-plus Michigan communities and counties that have passed similar resolutions. So I didn't know that 50 communities have passed resolutions. Oh yeah, communities and counties. The township of 2,500 residents also passed a resolution to create a militia. Okay. The resolution was passed days before Governor Gretchen Whitmer on Monday signed legislation that prevents those convicted of domestic violence misdemeanors from owning firearms for 8 years. It does so much more than that, though. Of course, in the fine print, it says there are several other incidences where you could lose your ability to purchase weapons or have them. And I think one law is actually you will have to ask permission from the local police department to buy a handgun starting in 2024. You're going to have to go and say, and I think pay, probably, right, a permit for a license. You have to pay, and then you can go buy your handgun. Unless you have a CPL. Then you don't have to go and ask permission. Anyway, it's more than just domestic violence, and that's, of course, how they get you. A wife beater or a husband beater shouldn't have a gun. Okay, but what about somebody that steals from a vending machine and gets a misdemeanor from stealing from a vending machine? Now you can't have a gun for 8 years. That's really what's happening with this new law. Holton Supervisor Alan Yeager told Bridge, Michigan, that overwhelming majority of township residents support the move because they fear their rights are slipping away, especially after Michigan adopted a red flag law that allows judges to seize weapons of those deemed a danger to themselves or others, right? Because your neighbor just has to not like you and say, hey, my neighbor's crazy. I think they have guns. And then they come and take your guns. It's really that simple. And of course, it shouldn't be. You just can't come in and take our weapons away without giving us a fight. Without giving us a fighting chance to stand up for ourselves because we may not be guilty of anything, Yeager said. We would just like to see local people stand up and say, you just can't do this and pass these laws because it may be good for the city, but not good for rural communities. You know why? Pretty easy. Because when seconds count, cops are minutes away. That's in the city, but certainly in the country. It would probably take 15 minutes for a cop to get to where I live. And again, it takes seconds to do whatever. Not going to get into any of that. The township tried and failed to pass a similar resolution last year. The new resolution, which was approved unanimously, also creates a militia open to anyone 18 and older who primarily lives in Holton Township. Holton Township will not acknowledge any new laws that are associated with red flag laws or any other infringement of the Second Amendment of the United States Constitution. Holton Township will not acknowledge any new regulation that prohibits open carry or concealed carry, the resolution reads. Okay, so then it comes down to the sheriffs, right? Jessica, go Marjorie. Yeah, Marjorie Steele, by the way, EDRA, that website, EDRA, I'll have it linked down below. A lot of good information. Sign up for the newsletter. Always keeping up with what's going on with economic development corporations. So thank you, Jessica and Connie. Amen. I'm assuming you're talking about Brandy's article. And absolutely, it was a very well-written article, Brandy. So excellent job. Keep going. Op-ed's coming up next, right, in Bridge, Michigan? Michigan in May became the 21st state to adopt a red flag law, but the measure doesn't take effect until February 13th. The law would allow relatives, current and ex-spouses, dating partners, police, and mental health professionals to petition courts for an extreme risk protection order to take away guns from those with mental health issues. A judge would have up to 24 hours to rule on the petition. If granted, police would notify the gun owner, who has then up to 24 hours to turn over their weapons before they're confiscated. That's just not right. In Michigan, at least 53 of 82, mostly rural counties, have passed resolutions declaring themselves Second Amendment sanctuaries. While some law enforcement have questioned how the red flag law would be enforced, the sanctuary resolutions are non-binding, since county and township officials can't direct sheriffs or police to flout the law. This is all political grandstanding for the far-right gun extremists, said Ryan Bates, executive director of End Gun Violence Michigan, an organization dedicated to passing gun violence prevention laws. Yeah. You know the main problem is mental health. It's pills, pharmaceutical drugs that doctors push onto people. That is main cause. And then, of course, when you isolate people and they're depressed and everything else, none of that helps. We've seen this in other states where gun sense majorities have passed laws like safe storage, like extreme risk protection orders, like protection for domestic violence's survivors. In Illinois, okay. At the end of the day, most law enforcement officers understand that laws aren't suggestions or guidelines, they are laws. Bad laws, there are such things as bad laws, and you can't just follow orders. So I behoove sheriffs to think about your community, right? That's what you're supposed to be working for, the community. If I were a sheriff, I would definitely listen to the people of my community and protect them, because at the end of the day, when the power's out, that's who you're surrounded by. So be good to your neighbor. Green Charter Township resident advocates support for the Big Rapids Library. Now, to me, is absolutely egregious that we are giving billions of dollars to private companies that can pay their own damn way, and yet we are thinking about shutting down libraries because there's no money. There's no money in our fire. There's no money in our parks. There's no money in our libraries. Why? Why is it? There's absolutely no reason that people should be paying, $75 a year? It's in here. Let me see if I can find it. I'm 75. There it is. The costs are now $75 per person or $150 per family per year. Although not a hardship for some, it will be for many. Yes. And everybody should have access to books for free in an educated society. But again, that's why you don't co-parent with the government. They don't want you to be smart. They don't want you to read. They don't want you to have access to books. Of course, we should all support libraries, but we shouldn't have to pay all of our tax dollars. We should have libraries and fire first and foremost, and good roads. Dang it! Expert predicts area to lose $10 million after Pfizer and LG have layoffs. Just more signs that we're contracting, and that next year is going to be an absolute mess. This came out and was updated. Came out November 15th, updated November 17th. Over the past few weeks, multiple companies across West Michigan have laid off hundreds of employees, including Pfizer in Kalamazoo and LG Energy Solution in Holland. And it will continue to happen thanks to automation, but I won't be able to get to any of that because I took too long and everything else, like I always do. So I'll have to share more of that automation and robots later. But in a statement on News 8, LG Energy Solutions said it was transitioning and retooling some production lines. That means automation, getting ready, as it prepares to open its new expansion, and that meant fewer staff was needed. So it prepares for new expansions, but less staff is needed. It could be because robots, let's see, I can share this one. Maybe. Well, I'm going to just give you, so right here, this is the Gander. Never heard of that, but obviously it's a Michigan publication. Robot waiter is the future. This Michigan restaurant thinks so. So you have that kind of robotic stuff going on. I'll show you this really quick. This is why there's layoffs. Isn't this creepy? I know this is creepy. This is China. They're, of course, Industry 4.0 leader for the social credit surveillance state. and the robotics and automation, and this is what they are working on right now. So this, America's bridges, factories, and highways are in dire need of repairs. Bring in the robots. So the writing is on the wall. Unfortunately, robotics is the future. Truth in time. The number of Michigan police officers has plummeted 19% since 2001. I would like to know the percentage it's plummeted just in the last 3 years after people were forced to get something that they didn't want to get and they left instead. Injuries we know now are not a rarity. realnotrare.com. It's awful what has happened to people since the rollout of that crap in 2020 or the end of 2020. So there was probably a dramatic decrease in police officers in the last 3 years. And again, by design, because then the cities are chaos and we beg for them to help us. That's ultimately the goal of all of this, is that we beg for them to implement what they want to implement. We have to ask for it. We have to demand it. It's like this sick form of torture or something. Anyway, coming back over here, LG laying off workers. So as we continue our mass expansion and renovations, LG Energy Solution, Michigan is transitioning and retooling some production lines from our current production facility to our second factory within our Holland site. Less staff will be needed as some production lines are transitioned. Due to this production gap and automakers realigning the speed of EV transition, it is with deep regret that we must unfortunately announce layoffs in Holland. The layoffs will occur in phases. Approximately 170 production team members will be laid off between December of 2023 and January of 2024. Right for the holidays. I'm so sorry to those people. We will continue to remain open and transparent with our workforce as this process unfolds. We understand the impact this will have on those who are being laid off and will provide those affected with support and assistance. This will include a severance package and outplacement services. LG Energy Solution continues to grow and has a bright future in the automotive industry. The major expansion project for our second facility is well underway, and with recent partnership announcement with Toyota, we will supply batteries to all 5 top global automakers. And then, of course, Pfizer is not doing well because people aren't taking their jabs anymore. But there's been rumors of a new sickness, so who knows what they have in store. And obviously the WHO is doing all kinds of stuff. You know what? I think I'm going to discuss this, why companies need to stop postponing their Industry 4.0 transformation, in the next video next week. So Monday, I will discuss the robotics and everything I didn't get to today. Tuesday, I'm going to discuss the Biden rule playbook. But before I'm done, I have this to share. Exercise, Sunday, November 19th, starting at 4 a.m. We will be conducting a training exercise with our military partners on Capitol grounds. Please do not be alarmed. So the only video I have been able to find was actually through another video, this creator, JWTV. I do recommend that you watch, but the probabilities of some of his theories are, very slim. He's got a lot of stuff that seems way out there, okay? I'm just going to be straight up with you. But that doesn't mean he does not find some real gems. And he's the one that alerted me, that's a better word, alerted me to what's going on here. And so, watch him, but he's definitely eclectic, in my opinion. But this, actually, I put this headset on. This is the training exercise somebody recorded on November 18th.
This is footage, Washington, D.C., November 18th. And later in the video, we're going to give you an ex-military guy perspective on what he's seen here, because they actually seen this video as well. Now, as you can see, this is Washington, D.C.
Real quick, Truth in Time says 900 in the past 3 years. It's crazy. I know the crime is up immensely too, of course. I mean, it's just our cities are going through destruction, just like a phoenix. Again, they destroy the city and then build it back up into a 15-minute city. Which, St. Petersburg, Florida, they actually said out loud that it's going to be a smart city on the news. So They're just saying it. Smart city is a 15-minute city, is a United Nations, World Economic Forum, Industry 4.0 city.
She's going by the gate here.
Okay, so the first thing you see right here is this tent. Now, very quickly, this is the first thing that I thought of, a decontamination shelter. Don't know if that's what it is or not. Just throwing that out there.
Sometimes it's not going to be that great. I know those people who's like, why is the quality so bad? Well, it's because they're live, and when you move, the reception is like that. They got a yellow tent set up. That's the first thing we see. I need you to be investigative with me right here, though. So tell me what you see right now whenever we look closer into this. Look what they're doing. They have a stretcher. They have military, 2 military guys right there.
And you see, okay, I don't know if you can see it very well, but right here on their left leg that is a gas mask. Because your gun goes on your right leg 99% of the time. That is a gas mask.
This is inside the secretive drills that basically wasn't covered on anywhere in the news, and you're getting the information right here, right now. So you've seen they had a stretcher, and what it appears to be a naked mannequin. Now we're gonna get a reasoning why all this stuff is happening, because I did from the military guy's perspective, the ex-military guy, and we're gonna talk about that. So this is a setup coming to U.S. soil. The person walks around the corner here, and they go up a little bit, and this gate that's set up is a perimeter saying police line, you can't go past it. So this is at Washington, D.C. This is a secretive drill that happened on the 19th, even though they posted it on one website, which is Twitter. Here's a lady zooming in here. You can see white vans. You can see more military units coming, and then there they are with the stretcher again. They're taking
see, that is definitely oops. That is definitely a gas mask.
So we're going to get perspective on what are they doing here. Also in the comment section right now, this is highly critical that you investigate with me. We need all of you. If you're ex-military, if you're from police, if you're in the department right now, what do you think is happening, and what do you think they're setting up for? And this could be
there. So this reminded me of something that I dealt with when I was in the military, which is a cbrn tent. That's what it reminded me of. Because I was security forces, I deployed twice. I did have to deal with cbrn, which is chemical. I did brain dump a lot of stuff, okay, but biological, chemical, radioactive, and nuclear strike, guys, okay? Now, I don't know what's going on, but the fact that nobody's talking about it, and I would not have known if not for this guy's video. So, again, he's got a lot of really weird news articles and stuff that he shares. That's why I watch him.
Exactly what this military guy is saying. But look, check it out now. They're going next to a gate here. And I found some other information that you need to know in order to understand the tying in of this picture. So they go into a tent here after running the mannequins off. They run the mannequins off. They go into a tent. It's something else they do with the emergency vehicle. They turn off the sirens as well. And so what we're going to do, we're going to bring you back here, and we're going to go into some of the perspective. So this is I'm going to go back into the video clip for you, but I want you to see this was the ex-military guy, and I'm going to read this in the background while you're constantly watching the video. So he said,
So I thought that as well could be either way, but being ex-military, that looks like some kind of chemical attack training for sure. Me and one of my buddies was discussing that last night because, like I said, you can see soldiers heading over. Yeah, so that is pretty much all that was shown.
That looks like some kind of chemical attack training for sure. Me and one of my buddies was the mannequins from one tent to another, and the ambulance would drive off with no siren. And then he goes and say, on the side of the building looks like to be a bunch of federal agents. The military seemed to be walking into the Capitol, appearing to be wearing mop gear and gas masks. As we all know, most of the time there is a training event, we get a false flag. What if we are witnessing a staged event they could film and go back and edit and add CGI to make this real? for a later date to make it look like the Capitol building was attacked. The reason why I say this is because this is exactly what it looks like they were training for as some of the chemical attacks at the Capitol building, which would be the reason why they carry individuals into one tent.
Oh yeah, those are definitely gas masks, and that's the training that's going on. So I don't know what's going to happen. Obviously, no one does, but we need to be aware that they're doing something. They're training. They're getting ready. Let's see. We have a little bit of time. I wanted to share a couple more things. So
at 7 o'clock and got Victoria, and they raided Sharon at
Did
the same time.
Did they arrest Victoria Block?
Yes.
Okay, sorry. So some context. Imagine living in a country where the FDA and the USDA will bust down your door and arrest you for selling unpasteurized raw milk and grass-fed meat that is statistically safer than lettuce you buy at Walmart or any other big box store, while that same FDA approved the use of mRNA shots in 6 months old infants without any questions or science to substantiate long-term safety. It's so painfully obvious our regulatory institutions are actively trying to destroy our health and prevent access to the healthiest foods that ensure your immune system is strong, your gut is healthy, and you're properly nourished enough to think like a rational and intelligent human being, dissenting against their authoritarian draconian nonsense. The USDA, CDC, FDA, and every other three-letter regulatory institution is a diabolical enemy of the people and should be completely gutted and replaced to ensure that there are no more conflicts of interest, no more revolving doors where they can go back and forth between industry and government, and properly held accountable for the egregious mistakes, corruption, and negligence that harm people that they are supposed to protect. Raw milk should be legal nationwide. The government shouldn't be involved. Why is the government involved? Its illegality in any state is absurd, and a statement to how captured government is by corrupt industry who want to get their cut for boiling milk and making it less healthy for you. Pasteurization, which, yeah, Pasteur goes back to Béchamp versus Pasteur, which is Béchamp was terrain theory and Pasteur was germ theory. And now we know about pasteurization and germ theory, but no one ever heard about terrain theory until the last 3 years, and the PSYOP happened, and people started questioning all the way to the germ theory itself, as we should. We need to question theory. It's not a law.
They arrested
Victoria
her.
Block.
Yeah. Yeah, they probably took your stuff.
What's the owner being charged with? Health? I have no idea.
I have no idea. I'm just following orders. I don't know what he's being charged for, or she.
So of every single police officer here, nobody knows anything?
This is an FDA investigation.
Yes. The FDA is taking our mangoes.
There you go.
Crack, crystal meth, and mangoes.
Not raw milk and organic food. Organic food
Crack,
in America is crime.
heroin, and watermelon.
It's crime.
Oh no, yeah, our government.
That's really sad hearing this foreign woman. Oh, it's a crime to have organic food. And she has an accent. That's why I'm assuming she's foreign.
Important.
So
That's definitely the meat. Yeah, they're loading all the meat up into the truck right now.
yeah, come down here. It won't be long till they're taking away our chickens. So they're cracking down on the Amish too, unfortunately. Let's see what this person has to say. Not in this state so far. I haven't heard anything about the Amish, but Pennsylvania, I believe, they're cracking down on them and what they sell. I think here they get around some laws by you can buy a share of a cow or something like that. But I just think that why do we have to do all that? The government is not supposed to be doing all this. It's not supposed to be this big. Let's see. Will this... Okay. For some reason, that's not going. I have another thing to share with you anyway. That is infuriating. I'll show you this.
Question is, how much is it going to cost? St. Petersburg is the newest city to be chosen to be transformed into a smart city. It's a push to change the way that neighbors in the area live, work, and play. Under a 3-year grant, Spectrum will provide wired and wireless network services focused on the St. Pete Innovation District. Local leaders want to use these new resources to create advanced
Spectrum. Is that like the same Spectrum that has that my internet goes through and that bought all the hospitals in Grand Rapids? Is that the same Spectrum?
applications and services that address local needs, including infrastructure, workforce development, public safety, education, and community health.
As pilot projects occur.
You see this right here? This is the United Nations Agenda 2030. These are the different colors that this St. Petersburg is promised. I guarantee it. And you know what? I will look and I will look into that, exactly which promises these 4 things equal.
We will gain insight about what works for our.
And this is Spectrum. I didn't even notice that. This is Spectrum of Michigan. That is crazy. That is giving a grant to make this a 15-minute city. So that's another nail in the coffin for Grand Rapids, which is basically owned by Spectrum.
Community. Then we can expand those programs throughout the region and share with other cities. We have the Smart Streetlight Project, which will be equipped with sensors. And then
Sensors. Oh, don't you just love being censored all the time and being watched all the time?
Online marine science education program, where we're going to be having researchers in the field and out on research vessels connected to kids and our Boys and Girls Clubs here in the community.
St. Petersburg joins 26 other cities in the program, which was launched by US Ignite. That nonprofit is working to speed up the smart city movement.
Oh, so I got a lead. The smart city movement. So smart cities in St. Petersburg, they will have sensors everywhere collecting data, environmental data, car data, and 24/7 surveillance. They're not even hiding it. Gotta love the UN symbol on the podium. I love this person for being aware that that was a UN symbol too. You gotta, the colors, man. I wonder, it makes me wonder about the rainbow. Like they're like subconsciously, they're like getting us ready for the rainbow flag to be the UN flag. Like, I don't know. I know that sounds like a stretch, but 46 seconds long. Here's another admission from the World Economic Forum that we need to hear.
There's going to be people of means who are going to travel. And then there's going to be people maybe who of lesser means who might actually be able to use an Oculus or a Magic Leap or some other kind of device to travel to the same place, but from their own couch. But in many ways, it's actually going to create even more distance between those two people. That psychologically, and I think that we've experienced this through social media. In many ways, it's brought people closer in certain ways, but actually created this remarkable divide because it's even more visible. Actually, the divide in certain ways.
Isn't this exciting? The juxtaposition between the rich and the poor is even worse. The transfer of wealth has been immense these last 3 years. It's just amazing. The moderator of the World Economic Forum panel titled "Shaping a Shared Future, Making the Metaverse," which I love talking about because it's such a dystopian nightmare. I can't believe that anybody is for it. Then if you think about it, if life is so terrible and you're eating bugs in reality, if they make life so bad here in the real world, then again, you'll be begging for an Oculus. You'll be begging for a feeding tube so you don't have to think about the bugs that you're eating, and that your mind will be in the metaverse. It'll be in Rome, a digital Rome that they built for us. They want to be God in a created world called the metaverse. It really comes down to wanting to be God and trying to be God here on Earth. Anyway, let's see. I have time for one more video, 39 seconds long. Another very interesting admission.
And the third thing I will point to is a very big move that's happening at the moment from product to service. I have a friend, he says, every product is a service waiting to happen. If you think about it, I mean, your cell phone, why do you want to own your cell phone? How many of you own your cell phones? How many knows if the company owns it? It's actually not a lot. I mean, you want the function, you want the service, right? Why do you want to own a cell phone if you can just lease it? And if you lease, why shouldn't you lease your refrigerator or your washing machine or your dishwasher? Or why do you want to own it? And
why do you want to own it? Why don't you want me to own it? That's my question. Because somebody's going to own it. World Economic Forum, Ida Onken, global young leader, of course. You will own nothing. You will just pay rent for services owned by governments and companies who control you and can refuse your custom. You say something that pisses off Ford, they'll turn your car off. Pretty simple. This is why they're pushing the electrification. It's just a conspiracy theory, though. No use watching, no use looking. They're saying it out loud because they're so close. They're so close to what they want to be done, to be implemented. But always darkest before the dawn, y'all. Always darkest before the dawn. Okay, for real. One more, and then I have to go make lunch for my mother-in-law, but this is interesting as well, and it's the last video that I wanted to share, so I'm glad I got those in. And then next week, again, I'm talking about robotics, because this is obviously what this is about, and software, a software-based system.
I think that the pandemic was an opportunity. I think all over the world, people realize how important health was. How now do we take that emotion of the health factor is so critical? But guess what, guys? The climate crisis is creating more health issues than you can ever imagine, but no one has been able to make that link in the past. So I think we are living in an age now, at a time now, where we need to grasp these opportunities and work together and really build on that, right? And
I want to ask you a question about that for a moment, though, because you're right. I feel the same way about COVID taught us all these lessons learned, and we should be incorporating that. And the climate crisis is going to be so much worse. But I believe we were talking a little before we started the panel about people forgotten and don't care. So how do we keep that front and center?
How do we keep people afraid all the time? And now we got to put that fear and we got to transfer it over to climate so that we can do climate lockdowns and have them be as successful as the health lockdowns. That's what these people are talking about. These psychotic individuals that are just sit up here and talk about how to run the damn world. Connie says they won't hide it when they believe they have already won. These people are lunatics. Yeah, that's a very good point. They think they already got the cat in the bag, so to speak. But you know, I think of the EV momentum not being as fast as they anticipated. That is such a positive thing, in my opinion. Like, that gives me hope that maybe, just maybe, they underestimated us and that we will stop their plans at the very last second. I mean, you got to have faith, though, right?
You're absolutely right. We were just talking about it earlier, that have people forgotten about COVID, right? So I think it's about the storytelling element. I think that a lot of the things we say on health are very doom and gloom, very, very much, you know, even on the climate issues, right? So to the extent that people feel that I can't deal with this anymore, I can't do this, but telling, you know, really inspiring stories about what is possible if we work together. So similarly, I think with the climate crisis, we've got to bring those stories out, that sense of possibility.
Wide Awake Media, definitely recommend following them on Twitter. This is agenda contributor for the World Economic Forum. Mahmoud deliberates with John Kerry's daughter, Vanessa Kerry. So that was Vanessa Kerry in the middle, about how to leverage the emotion from the pandemic to help advance the climate crisis narrative using storytelling. These people have so much contempt for you and I. It's awful. But the good news is that carbon is not a pollution, that life is precious and beautiful, and that human beings are, and this life in general is a gift from God, and that we have unalienable rights from God that human beings cannot take away justifiably. They can take them away, but they are wrong in doing so. They are acting under evil by doing so. So there's good news. People, and I know that it's hard to see possibly in your real life that people are waking up. that they're becoming more aware of this corruption. But it's hard for people to talk to each other after the pandemic. So you'd be surprised at how much you have in common with your neighbor and even on your ideas. And most of the time, everybody's worried about the same things. It's just the solutions that we disagree on. So let's remember that we have the same issues. The same people are causing these problems for all of us. And so we can come up with better solutions than they can. And happy Thanksgiving. I am thankful for this life. I hope you are as well. This is the great battle of our time, but it's what we are here for, in my opinion. We're here for our spirit to learn and to level up, and all we can do is try to do our best. If you give 110%, there's no excuses when you go to the other side. So I use that method, thanks to the military actually taught me, but if you just do, like I said, 110%, at the end of the day, like, I lay my head on the pillow and I say I tried. And if I didn't give 110%, then when I lay my head on the pillow, I evaluate why didn't I do that, and how can I in the future? And just, if everyone tried to do that, I think the world would be a better place. Like, just try to make yourself better, because you are the only person you can change. Your actions are the only ones that you can control. And so that's the best place to be, best place to start. So I'm actually going to be on Turn the Page with Janine again. It's been a while. On Friday night at 7 p.m. Have no idea what we're talking about or what's going on. On Friday night, sometimes she has game shows, so I don't know if that's what it is. But I'm just looking forward to chatting with her. If you guys want to come hang out Friday night for an hour or so, then please do. And otherwise, I will see you on Monday, 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, talking about robotics and automation for sure. I just had to push it back because of the January 6th video that I felt compelled to do. So if you haven't seen that, please check it out. It's on Rumble as well. And I keep forgetting, but please check out my interview with Seamus Pendragon, who wrote the book Land of the Free, Home of the Brave, and Other BS. I thought it was a fun conversation, and I've gotten positive feedback on it. So please check it out if you get time this weekend. And thank you so much again for hanging out and for being willing to listen to what the hell is going on in this world. So I'll see you guys Friday night or Monday. And once again, happy Thanksgiving. Happy Thanksgiving, Michelle Wise. Happy Thanksgiving, Travel Around Susie. I appreciate you guys. Thanks for being here, Susie. And we'll see you guys later. Oh, Connie says, happy Thanksgiving. I love your show, Michelle. I'm so glad I found it. God bless. God bless you. And I love you guys. Thank you. Happy Thanksgiving. Peace out, guys.